Good morning, you Baltimoreans. What do you call yourselves? Baltimoreans, I don't know. These are some drawings I did of a birch tree, part of a birch tree that's in the courtyard of my building. And all of these were done with fountain pens from 1900 to around 1950 maybe. And many of them have really expressive nibs. Some of them have fine nibs. Some are broad and sort of moppy. They're all very different, which is why I have a million of them. Now, I've got a couple of hundred pens that I have on my desk right here that I use, and I've got another couple of thousand pens in my collection. And I just need them, that's all. So when you go to the pen show to find a good pen to draw with, the important thing for you and for me, both of us, is the nib. How is the nib going to write? And you're going to be at the pen show, and you'll see this pen, and you'll see this pen, and you'll see this pen, and you'll see this pen. And all of these essentially can have the same exact nib, which is the important part. But this one and this one, because they have gold overlays and silver overlays, are going to be more expensive. This pen, because it's a ripple pattern, which is people collect, is going to be more expensive. Plain black pens are the ones that you can buy and I can buy less expensively, and again, it's doesn't make any difference whether it looks like this or like this. The point is the important thing. Now, I don't know that much about modern pens, but modern pens meaning post ballpoint pen invention era, when everyone tried to dumb down their fountain pens to make it easy for new people to understand how they work. You can buy modern pens, but their nibs are going to be less refined. They're going to be a little blobbier. They're going to be a little more, they're not going to be as fine. They're not going to be as flexible. And the reason that they're not going to be as fine and flexible is they would be scratchy-ish to people that have never tried a fountain pen before. They'll say, "Oh my God, this is scratchy." Well, it's supposed to be. A pen that has a very fine nib, by its definition, has to be scratchy, because there's less of a ball of iridium at the end of that nib. And one of the things that I really would love you to do is, if you were to buy a pen there, whatever you do, don't get it ground down to be smooth, because that's taking away material that you can never put back. If you find a pen that's scratchy, buy another one. But now there are a lot of people out there, friends of mine, that grind nibs and polish nibs and do stuff like that, and they do a very good job. But almost always, well, yes, always they are reducing the amount of iridium on the end of the nib, and that can't be put back. So I would prefer it if everyone went to the pen show and found a pen that they liked without having to have it altered. Now, some nibs have been damaged, where yes, you have to do that. Some nibs have been worn down by someone that owned it previously to such an extent that it has a sharp edge to it. That could be toned down a bit. But there was a man at a pen show, the last pen show I was at in Philadelphia, who said he polishes all of his pens before and polishes the nibs smooths the nibs for all of his pens before he sells them. And he said he's never been able to get an accountant nib to be smooth. Well, they're not supposed to be. They have a sharp point for a particular reason, to make a tiny, tiny thin line. So, in my opinion, he's ruining that pen by trying to smooth it out. And if he's ruining that pen by trying to smooth it out, he might be ruining all the other pens he's trying to smooth out too. There may be a lot of people that watch this video who will be very upset with me for saying that sort of thing, and I apologize. As I said, it's my opinion. Anyway, back to pens to buy. Most of the pen collectors these days will let you try a pen out. Back in 20 years ago at the pen shows, 40 years ago almost at pen shows, 30 years ago at pen shows, you couldn't find a bottle of ink because everyone collected pens to put in a glass case and look at them. They didn't write with them, other than me and maybe a few other collectors. But I went to the pen show in Philadelphia one year. There was not an ink bottle to be found. So I left the show, went to a stationery store, bought an ink bottle, went back to the pen show so I could actually try the pens out that I wanted to buy. So these days, because of people like you and me and calligraphers, people who use these pens to draw with or to write with, almost every dealer now knows that and will provide paper and ink for you to try the pen out. So try out the pen and draw, bring paper that you like to use. That's another thing. You might like to use paper that has a little bit of texture to it. So bring that to write with. Don't bring ink of your own to try to write with, because chances are the ink that the dealer has is what they want people to use, because that's what they've been dipped in before. And so let's just use their ink. I'll talk about ink in a minute. I'm trying to make this video very fast, and I'm forgetting lots of things. But if you have questions, I can try to answer them for you, or direct you to another video I may have made. One of the things that these pens cannot take is ink that's waterproof. So ink like this, platinum carbon ink, it'll clog, and you don't want that. There are specific pens that were manufactured for India ink or waterproof ink, and you can buy those. Those are called safety pens, but don't use that kind of ink in these pens because it'll clog the pen. Those of you that do ink wash or watercolor on top of pen work might have to go to a different source than a pen like this. You might have to buy a modern pen. I've been using a pen called made by Noodler's Ink, called the Boston Safety Pen, and that holds permanent ink. But permanent ink is thicker, it doesn't flow as fast, and the pen that the nib that comes in that pen is not a gold nib, so it's not as flexible as a gold nib is. So let's just talk about the nibs. On a pen from 1900 to 1940 or so, almost all of the nibs on a good pen were 14 karat gold. They're not going to corrode. They're going to be, they can be flexible. Not all of them are. They can be flexible, and they are meant to be flexible. Now, the degree of flex is dependent on the way the nib was made. Not every nib is going to do this. And there is a way to press down too hard on any nib and damage it. So most dealers will know the extent of the pressure that you can give on a pen. I don't know how do we know that? I've been doing this for a million years, so I wonder if I can. I just know myself when I try out a pen that, oh, this one I can press down this much, and like that's about as much as this one wants to go. Going down further than that could damage the pen. This pen, this one can go to there, a third of that. There are other pens that I have that can be very, very flexible. This is one of my, quote, Franken-pen. No, where did it go? I'm just going to show you one of my Franken pens, which are the pens that I make for calligraphers. And I use Victorian-era dip pen nibs, which are very, very, very flexible, but I wouldn't trust them for drawing because they have a sharp point, and if you press down too far, too much, going in the funny direction, it might damage the nib or tear the paper, or both. So for you and you and you, I like to, when I have a bunch of pens and I'm deciding how I want to sell them or who should get this pen, who deserves this pen, I put them into a category. This one is going to go to a collector because it's pretty and rare and blah, blah, blah. This one is going to go to an artist because of its nib. This one is going to go to a calligrapher because of its nib. For artists, I really like to find them pen nibs that you can sort of push around in any direction, and they don't scratch, they don't sputter ink, they don't. They're relatively smooth, going in all directions. Some pens that are for calligraphers are really good at going only in a certain kind of direction. I like a pen for an artist. I like to be able to follow the will of the artist without providing any feedback or what's the word I want? I want them to be pliant. I don't want them to be putting up any attitude at you. I want them to go in any direction. Now, they can be firm, they can be they can have a hard, stiff nib. I don't mean that. I mean, I want them not to fight you. I want you to be able to push the pen in any direction without worry that you're going to break it. A really good pen for that, pens that are good for them, for that sort of, we'll call it abuse, are Schaefer pens and Wall Eversharp Skyline pens. Now, I'm making a horribly broad blanket statement there, but Schaefer nibs, more likely than not, had the shape of the very tip is sort of more rounded, and some of them have a slight upturn, so that you can sort of hold the pen in many different angles, and you can go in any different direction, and the pen won't sort of grab the paper. A Skyline nib Eversharp Skyline pen. Let me just find one so you know what I'm talking about. They look like this. Rounded front, pointed back. They sort of look like a Zeppelin. They often have a nice rubbery nib and nice and flexible, though not all of them are. You know, you uncap one of these pens and it's a crapshoot what you're going to get. The nibs are all going to be good, but you might get one that's firm or one that's an italic nib or a stub nib. But often they have a nice rubbery nib. But anyway, if you were to come to the table I'm going to be sitting at, I'm helping my friend Nicola Pang with his pens. He's teaching a couple of seminars, and I said I'd watch his table for him. And if you have a desire for a certain kind of a pen, I can sort of tell you what to look for if you'd like. I might say, you know, try a Schaefer pen, or look for a pen that looks like this, point to one that someone has at a table, and I'll say that pen is pretty good. If you have a pen and you want me to look at it to see if I think it's a nice pen for drawing, I'd be happy to. I've been using pens for more than 40 years to draw with and to do calligraphy with, and I have a pretty good sense of what works, not only for me but for other artists, so I'm happy to share that with you. I'm sorry that I can't go to your seminar because it's full, but I hope while I'm in Baltimore to do some drawings of Baltimore so I can feel like I'm a part of your Urban Sketchers group. If you have questions, please ask them either on the Facebook page or on the YouTube thing, and I'll try to answer them. I wish I had a script so I know if I'm forgetting anything. I'm forgetting all sorts of stuff. For you people on a shoestring budget, pens that will be less expensive will be pens that are plain, pens that are small, pens that might be missing a part that isn't important. Like this pen here, it's supposed to have a little clip. It doesn't need a little clip to work. That's just to put it in your pocket. If you don't want, or if you don't worry about that, this pen with a clip might be $80. This pen missing its clip might be $40. So you might get the pen for half the cost. This pen, if it had a name engraved on it, might be less, well, 9 times out of 10 will be less than a pen that doesn't have a name engraved on it. Pens that have a little bit of wear, like this one has, I don't know if you can see that, but there's wear there, and this little ball is worn off, so it has a little hole in it. Well, that lowers the value of this pen by $100. So, but it doesn't make a bit of difference in terms of how it writes or what sort of drawing you're going to do with it, unless you look at the pen and you say, oh my god, I wish this had a clip. Boy, I'm